Here's the truth. You don't need tens of thousands of dollars as well as a huge team to successfully bring your idea to life. I've seen so many founders burn out or burn out of cash as they're trying to launch and go to market. So in this episode, I am talking about how you can go to market without burning cash or burning out. This is the real of building a conscious business, the hard-earned lessons, unfiltered truths, and impactful guests. Welcome to Confessions of a Conscious CEO. When I had my first business, which was a sustainable fashion consultancy called Recloseted, I burnt out all the time, and I also wish I was a little bit more responsible with the business finances. Let me explain. So when I started my first business, because I was a first-time founder, it was my baby. I wanted it to go so well. I was a perfectionist with everything. I also did not want to relinquish control. And so I was doing everything. I was trying to be a perfectionist. As you can likely tell, that is a recipe for burnout because there's all this work to be done. And if you're a perfectionist and you don't want anyone else to help you and it's only just you, you can only do that for so long. So I burnt out, but then not only that, also because I was a perfectionist, I was like, this is my baby. This is a representation of me. My identity was tied to it. I also wanted everything to be perfect from the get-go. I invested in ads, I invested in PR, and yes, those are all things that will help you grow and scale. But at the beginning, I really didn't need that because I was still figuring out my positioning, my products, and my services. Until you are solid on all fronts and until you figure out your organic, I really don't think you should be doing paid, and I will talk more about that later. But long story short, I wasted a lot of money, in my opinion, because I just wasn't at that stage yet, but I wanted everything to be perfect. Looking back now, this is what I would do differently. The very first thing is to validate before you build. This is so important. Often as founders, especially as first-time founders, we will likely have a problem or pain point that we personally face or we know a friend or family member face, and then we get really passionate about solving it. We tend to build that product or that solution in silo. We lock ourselves away in a room. We like to tinker with it. We become a mad scientist, whatever it is, and then we fall in love with this product and solution we've made, and we're like, surely this is it. This is going to be the one. This is going to solve the problem pain point. This is going to make my company a unicorn or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if you're not validating and co-creating your product with your ideal customer, it is likely not going to do very well. And the reason behind that is because you've just based this on yourself and you've just guessed the whole time. That is why you always want to validate before you sink tens of thousands of dollars into anything, especially if you're starting a product-based business, or even if you're starting a tech company. Like, don't hire developers or sink all this time into developing code if you haven't validated it. So the golden question is, how do you do that? Well, the first thing you need to do is identify who you're helping, who your ideal customer is, figure out their problem and pain points, and you work with them to co-create a solution. The tools you can use to do that are a survey and interviews. So with the survey, you really want to gather a good quantity of data so that you can make data-driven decisions. In the survey, I always get my clients to figure out what the problem, the pain point is, and really get to know their ideal customer. From there, you dive deeper into the interviews. If you're listening to this right now and you're like, okay, that makes sense, but like, what do I put in the survey? What do I ask during the interviews? How do I even get people to do my survey and get people to do interviews? I have an entirely free course called GTM Essentials, and I have an entire lesson in there on how you can do market research. There's a survey template you can just grab. There's an interview template you can leverage. And so you can enroll for free using the link down below or at selenaho.com/GTM-essentials. So check that out. But that's the very first step. You need to validate it before you build. Just an example, I once worked with a tech company where they had sank hundreds of thousands of dollars into building this app. And this app was really good, but the problem was that their ideal customer wasn't using it. So the app looked amazing. It was super polished. It was custom built, but no one was using it. And so that's such a waste of time, resources, and energy. The founder took basically a year to build this app, and they tested a little bit, and people were like, yeah, this is cool. But when they launched, they only had a handful of people sign up. From those handful of people, no one was logging into the app to use it again. Instead, they should have made a prototype. They should have really done the cheapest, quickest way to market would have been, and then they could have iterated. So after that, they did the interviews, they did the surveys, they figured out what was wrong with the app, and they changed it. But they could have saved a whole year of time as well as hundreds of thousands of dollars coding and building this app. So take it from me, you need to validate before you demand, and GTM Essentials will teach you how to do just that. The other thing I wish I knew, and I learned the hard way, was that you just need to focus on one social media platform and pair it with email marketing. The reason behind that is because there is so many different platforms nowadays. There's TikTok, there's LinkedIn, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's YouTube, there's podcast, all these different platforms you could be on. And there is a lot of people creating content nowadays, which is great. But because of that, in order to stand out, you do need to have really good content. And when I say good content, I don't mean you need to have the fanciest camera or the fanciest equipment or whatever that is. It just means good content that your ideal customer would resonate with and they would get value from. And good content and being consistent and creating good content takes a lot of time and effort. As a result of that, if you're spreading yourself too thin and being everywhere, chances are nothing's really going to be done well. That was definitely the case for me with my first business. I had a podcast, I had an email newsletter, I was on Instagram, I was on LinkedIn. Honestly, I'm not super proud of a lot of the content we were putting out, and we were just putting out content to be consistent, and everything was a little bit haphazard, and I just wasn't proud of it. And so from that, I burnt out really, really hard because obviously creating so much content is a lot of different. It's a lot of work. It's also an investment. And so I decided to just laser focus on podcasting. And I grew my former podcast, Recloseted Radio, which some of you might have been listening to and have found me through that. But Recloseted Radio, I grew it to a top 5% podcast in the world once I buckled down and decided to focus on it. Putting your eggs in one basket when it comes to your platforms is so much better because then you can grow your community and then grow your revenue, hopefully as well from that if you're being strategic with your content, which can then fund all these other platforms. So I'm not saying you can't be on all the platforms ever. I'm just saying at the beginning, you should really focus so that you can have the bandwidth to do more. Then email marketing is so important because emails is customer real estate you own. You're not at the beck and call of algorithms. And emails are a great sales tool as well. So I always recommend to my clients to have one social media platform and email marketing. The next lesson off the back of that is do not do paid ads until your organic marketing is down pat. I kind of referenced this and alluded to it at the beginning of this episode, but I did ads before because I was like, I want to grow, I'm going to scale. But the problem is I didn't really have my positioning down pat. I also didn't really have my product and services down pat yet. And so I think it was a bit premature for me to do ads. I mean, if you have millions and millions of dollars to play with, then by all means, you can definitely do that. But I do think in the early days, if you haven't validated things yet, if you're not super clear on your ideal customer, and you also just don't know what type of content works well for you because you haven't experimented enough organically, I just think it's a waste of money. And I do think you're lighting that money on fire. There's been so many examples of my past clients that are VC funded. And a lot of their investors were pressuring them to do ads and they were like, okay, fine, I'll do it. They spent $100K a month on those ads and it's just lighting money on fire. It doesn't really get them their ideal customers. It wasn't really great. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't do ads. I'm just saying you need to wait for the right moment to do it. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. Once your organic platforms are good, you figure out what type of content works well for you, what type of people you're reaching, then you can boost what's doing well and it's just adding fuel to the fire that's already burning versus just lighting this money on fire, trying to play with it and figure out what's going on. I don't think it's the best use of your money and your time and your resources, if I'm being honest. I think put it in organic first, figure out what works, and then amplify it. Of course, from a sales funnel perspective, you want to build a sustainable sales system. Inside my free GTM Essentials course, I teach you how to do just that. The sales funnel, if you've never seen it before, it's an upside down triangle because at each point, you have customers that are going to opt out because you're not for everyone, and that's okay. So the stages, the three main stages are as follows. First of all is traffic. How do people find out about you? How are they discovering you? What is your lead gen? What does that look like? From there, you next need to nurture them and warm them up because it's not enough just for someone to know about you. They need to get to know you. Think of like any relationship you have in your life, right? When you first meet someone, they're not your bestie right away. You have to get to know them. You know what their values are, what their hobbies are, see if you get along, all this stuff. And so nurturing is so important. I am noticing that the nurturing period is just taking longer and longer now, which is fine. It's just because there's a lot of different businesses out there nowadays. People also tend to be a little bit more sus because they've been burned, which is not a bad thing. It's just something to know. And so the nurturing takes longer. And then finally you convert them and you invite them to either buy your product or work with you or whatever it is. So that's the sales funnel. My mistake before was I didn't really automate it. A lot of it was manual. My traffic was if I didn't put out content, I wasn't getting traffic. My nurturing was like if I didn't speak at an event or if I didn't put out more content, no one was being nurtured. For conversion, it was like if I wasn't hopping on sales calls, I wasn't closing anything. In the early days, you do need to put in a lot of work, but if you don't have anything running in the background for your sales funnel, you're going to have inconsistent sales. And then that's going to be really stressful. That's going to be very anxiety inducing. And it's just a vicious cycle. You really do need to have things set up in the background running for you. So some ideas are for traffic, making sure your SEO is set up and ready to go, because if people are Googling, people are at the end of the funnel, they're looking for a solution. And if you pop up, that's great. So SEO is an example. For your nurturing, if you have a lead magnet and something you're giving away for free, like for me, my GTM Essentials course is my lead magnet. It is my free thing that nurtures the audience. It's just running in the background. You need something like that. Finally, for conversion, if you have a really good sales page and people can buy 24/7, that's great. Literally, you can just choose those 3 things to start with. But inside GTM Essentials, I do help you identify based on where you're at, which are the things you should prioritize. And the thing is, you shouldn't all of a sudden listen to this episode and be like, oh, I need to set up my SEO and I need to set up my sales page and I need to make a lead magnet this weekend. Like, that's not the point here. The point is that we're going to do this sustainably and strategically based on your goals and where you are. Don't freak out. Inside GTM Essentials, I walk you through all of this and how you can do it. And so strategy-wise, looking back now, after I have gone through all the different years of entrepreneurship, this is what I would do differently to ensure that I don't run out of cash, and I was also being more strategic with my time. And then from a burnout perspective, so many learnings here. I mean, part of it was definitely in the early days, I was doing my business as a side hustle. So I had a full-time job and I was doing this on the side. Obviously, that means I'm working a lot, which is a recipe to burnout. However, I think now I have a lot more tools and tactics to kind of manage that. But the other thing is what I alluded to at the beginning of the episode, where I was just such a perfectionist, and I still kind of am sometimes, and I'm still working on it. But the perfectionistic tendencies obviously don't help to the situation. And then the other thing is I was and still am a recovering control freak. So all those things just don't add up to success when it comes to managing workload. How I've decided to move forward with this and really in my new GTM consultancy business, ensure I'm managing my mental health and I'm taking care of myself and I'm preventing burnout is as follows. The first thing is the mentality around burnout, because with my previous business, I would just work, and then fall off a cliff and burn out and then be like, okay, I need to rest now. And then I would rest, feel good enough to work again, go pedal to the metal again, and then burn out again. And it was just such a vicious cycle. Inevitably, every time you burn out, it just gets worse and worse because you kind of don't fully recover. Personally, you kind of start to feel shittier and shittier because I just felt like, oh my gosh, like I can't even take care of myself. Why does this keep happening? And then it just feels very hopeless because you still have all this work you have to do, but you're not up to par. And so like, what do you do, right? Now I am a lot more preventative because before it would be very reactive. I wouldn't know when I would burn out. I wasn't really in tune with myself. I was kind of numb all the time. Now I'm a lot more preventative, and I actually built this into my routine now. Every single day in the morning and in the evening, I ask myself on a scale of 1 to 10, how overwhelmed I feel or how tired I am or how burnt out I feel. A 0 is like, I'm feeling great. This is amazing. And then a 10 is like, you're burnt out to the crisp. So that's the scale. And anytime I'm approaching a 6, 7, 8, I know I need to start to put on the brakes a little bit. Checking in every single morning and evening, that's a really good way for me to be more preventative. The other thing I've done is implement something I like to call my self-care menu. I have come up with this in advance. It's just on my phone in my notes app. But I have low effort, medium effort, and high effort items. A low effort item is something that is free and easy for me to do. If I'm approaching a 5 or a 6, I can easily do those things. For me, those things are just simply sleeping more, meditating, walking outside, ensuring I'm drinking enough water, taking a bath, free, easy things I can do, and I don't even have to leave my house, which is great. And then the medium effort things are things that might cost a little bit of money or require me to leave my humble abode. That could look like a Pilates class, that could look like a walk outside, that could look like lunch with a friend, or a facial, or a mask, or whatever it is. And then the high lift items, it could be a massage, it could be a staycation, it could be a holiday or a vacation. And so think about what that looks like for you. And I think it's really just in your best interest to have this all planned out. so that once you do notice you're hitting that 5, 6, 7, 8, you can then pull up your phone and be like, okay, what should I do that would make me feel better? And sometimes it's not the same thing. Like sometimes we just need rest, and so you just need to sleep. Other times you just need to switch your brain off a little bit. So maybe you could go for a movie, or you could go for a Pilates class, or you could see a friend. And so, just do with that what you will, but being preventative has been such a game changer for me. And so in short, bringing your idea to market and going to market does not mean you have to burn out and run out of cash. You can do this sustainably for both your business and for yourself. And I hope that this has given you some of the strategies, tactics, and tools to do that. Again, my free GTM Essentials course is going to be incredibly helpful for you. So you can register for free via the link down below or at selinaho.com/GTM-essentials. Let me know in the comments what your favorite part was of this episode or your biggest takeaway, as well as any questions you have. And I will see you in the next episode. And that's a wrap on this episode of Confessions of a Conscious CEO. I hope you got a lot out of this episode. If you did, it would mean the world if you subscribed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify and left a rating and review to help more conscious founders discover this show. It would also make my day if you shared this episode to your Instagram stories or LinkedIn and tag me at Selena Ho or at Confessions of a Conscious CEO. Always cheering you on, and I cannot wait to see what you built from this.